Good morning, everybody. It's so fantastic to see so many people here and so many friendly faces. This is traditionally the worst session of a technology conference, the time that we bring on the sponsor and you all switch off.
I'm not feeling the love here, Ben, I've got to tell you.
Maybe later, Matthew, maybe later. We are going to try and make the next 20 minutes to be both informative and educational and possibly a little bit difficult for our beloved sponsor here. Matthew Key joined Telefonica O2 in 2002, was CFO, rose up to be CEO in the UK, then CEO in Europe, and 2 weeks ago handed on the mantle of running O2 to become the CEO of Telefonica Digital, a whole new wing of Telefonica, a whole new startup within a massive corporation. We're going to be talking about that. But before we get into Telefonica Digital, today really is probably a pivotal day in the mobile phone industry. For those of you who were up late last night upgrading your iPhone or swearing at your BlackBerry, you will know that, man, bad move from Remy. You will know that today is an extremely pivotal day in the mobile phone industry. Things have suddenly got quite interesting for the first time in a few years, Matthew. How do you see the industry that you've been in? It was quite commoditized for a while, and now it's suddenly got quite thrilling.
Yeah, I think from the operator side, it was maybe quite commoditized. But I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen so much development in the ecosystem. I mean, the catalyst was clearly the first iPhone. And from the iPhone, we went into app stores, and from the app stores, we're going into things like machine-to-machine and cloud computing and e-health and financial services. So the pace of change has been really significant. Perspective of operators, getting commoditized, voice and text business, and that's the challenge that's in front of us to stay relevant.
So that's a really interesting challenge, because traditionally, network operators have been enormous, old-fashioned, ex-government, ex-post office businesses. Not really known for their innovation, not known for their speed of operation. Now, you were CEO of O2, a major network operator, and all of its partners across Europe. How do you, as a business leader, how do you take a large and slow-moving infrastructure company and re-spin it towards the sort of startup app-based economy that a lot of people in this room are part of?
So the first thing I would say is O2 used to be BT Cellnet. Now, those of you that are old enough would remember BT Cellnet, not the best operation in the world. But from an O2 perspective, we almost had rebirth back in 2002 when we came out of BT. And that was our opportunity to reset the rules. And we reset the rules on a lot of things in the mobile industry. And I think started to really set the agenda for the UK, but also going forward. Now we've got an even bigger challenge, I think, because we are in a situation where the ecosystem around us is changing. Our relevance to customers is changing and reducing. We have to admit that. So that's where we've really got to go and keep that relevance and create new capability.
Before we get onto your solution, let's really make a deal of how bad a problem you've got, right? iOS 5 came out yesterday. I can now send an iMessage to anybody else with an iPhone, which is like everybody in this room, pretty much. And it won't cost me anything, and a network operator won't be able to charge me for it other than the data which is rolled into my plan. We're starting to see Skype and WhatsApp and all of these other different applications on the phone that's taking away from your core revenue as a network operator. This is a bad thing, right? It's actually quite dark times for network operators who are specialized in revenue coming from voice and text and so on.
So it's clear what we've got to do is change our business model. If we stay where we are, we'll become irrelevant, we won't be making the returns we need, and we won't be able to invest in the network. So that's the clear challenge that faces us. So what we've got to do is create the right services for you to continue to get value out of us, whether that's priority moments that we've done in the UK, whether that's O2 Wi-Fi that we're rolling out. So how do we make sure you're getting value from us so you're still happy to pay us the £35 a month or whatever it is you pay, maybe a bit more in your case, because you're getting value from other stuff and not just voice and text.
£35 a month would be fantastic. On that basis, then, you've just taken over a new position, formed a new company, Telefonica Digital, based in London, working on these new services, new apps, and so on. two questions, and this is the opportunity for your pitch, really. What is this company, and why is it here? Why not in San Francisco or in Beijing?
Right. So why does it exist? And that goes back to all your previous questions, is we've got to change our business model, and we've got to create new revenue streams and new customer relevance points, number one. Why is it in London? Big statement. Anybody that knows Telefonica, it's a traditional, or was a traditional Spanish incumbent. To position Telefonica Digital, which is a global organisation, out of London is a massive statement. Why? I think the capability, and we've just been hearing from some of the guys in terms of the capability that there is in London from an entrepreneurial basis, the opinion formers that are in London, and it is a global capital. It is a global capital. So what we've done is effectively we've created a unit that pulls a lot of the assets we've already got. So we've got online portals in Brazil, Terra, which has 80 million customers a month looking at its news. We've got social networks, 20 in Spain. And we've got social mobile networks here like giffgaff that we've got in the UK. So we're pooling our assets and then creating business models around that.
So what's the model? Is it like an incubator? Is it a top-down thing? You know, you're commissioning new products. How does it work?
So we've got existing capability. So if you look at, and for us, there's two different elements here. There's a business stream where we're dealing with other corporates and changing their value chains, whether it's machine to machine, putting SIM cards in cars, for example, whether it's health capability that we've got that we're giving to the health service to change their economics of looking after customers. So there's the business element, and then there's also the consumer element. What we're very clear on is we're not going to be able to keep and own and build all of that capability internally. So we have to go and partner with people and do joint ventures and do equity investments with different companies that have got different capabilities that's going to give us the full set.
So that's a very interesting thing. Around about half of the audience here are at CEO level or founder level, so and, you know, very high powered. And an awful lot of the people in this room will be having problems with talent acquisition. You know, the big challenge that everybody faces is getting the good people to come and work for them. And as a network operator, as a big corporate, you know, multinational corporation, just from the zeitgeist, I'm sure you must have a huge problem with recruiting the brightest and the best, because they don't want to come and work for Telefonica. They want to go and start Moshi Monsters or their own design firm or whatever. How do you deal with that talent issue?
So number one, you have to recognise it's a challenge. You know, if you say to somebody, would you like to come and work for Telefonica? Most of the people in this room will go, no, thank you very much, I'm sure. So we have to recognise it's a challenge. Geographical location is important. So we're currently in Slough. We're going to come into central London, so we're going to open office in central London is a really important thing. And then the other thing is to show people the possibility that this is a global footprint. So if you create something, automatically you've got a footprint of 300 million customers around the planet. So if you can create the right thing, and we can create the right environment for you to work in and create the right thing, then there's a massive footprint. You can actually make a real difference.
But large corporations have their own immune system, right? Anybody here who's tried to get a major innovation into an existing old business has always found, you know, problems. So they've been swatted down. You run lots of networks around the world that have existing revenue. How is the rest of Telefonica going to take it when, you know, some interesting partnership that you do with a crazy startup that might be in the room right now starts eating away at existing profit margins, that invents the thing that starts taking away the text message revenue or the long-distance voice revenue?
So this is the biggest factor in the mindset shift. We have to move into the future rather than protect the past. And if you look at what customers are doing today, we can't close our eyes to the fact that customers are using WhatsApp and Viber and bypassing our network. So we cannot sit where we are with the products we've got. We have to go and embrace that future and actually change our whole raison d'etre. And the fact that Telefonica Digital has been set aside as a separate unit on a global basis shows that actually we've got some of that flexibility. And I know the CEOs of the countries really want to take the stuff that we're going to be developing.
Right, so you're not going to get into trouble if you start making their profits come down?
Well, there's that trade-off, clearly. I mean, there's a short-term, long-term trade-off, but what we've got to do is create the right products for customers, and what we're going to be doing is giving them the products they can sell to their customers.
All right, new products then. What have we got coming down the line? You know, over the past few years, all of the innovation has come from the handset manufacturers, from Apple, from the Android manufacturers, and so on. And network operators have almost universally, the innovations they placed onto the phone, the software they put onto the phone, things like that, have been dreadful. And hundreds of millions of euros have been wasted on portals and enhanced experiences. And the great success of iPhone was to ban that from the handset. What is it that you can bring that's going to change that, change that new environment?
So first up, we can't operate in a walled garden environment. We have to open up and we have to use the assets that's in front of us. If I point to a couple of specific examples, so Priority Moments, which is something we've launched in the UK, which is location and content. I don't know whether you've used it. No. Location, contextual specific.
So let's talk about Priority Moments, apart from sounding like a chocolate. Anybody here know what Priority Moments is? Left-hand side of the room are cool, middle's a bit puzzled, a couple of people over there. We can very quickly explain what Priority Moments is.
So classic example, real life, my 18-year-old shopping for something in South London, doesn't know where he is, wants to go for pizza, taps on the Priority Moments, your nearest pizza restaurant is Zizzi's, here's how you get via Google Maps, turn up to Zizzi's, 2 for 1 on your pizza. He goes to buy a pizza from a restaurant he didn't know exists, Zizzi's get an extra customer, he gets a 2 for 1 pizza, we sit in the middle of the transaction and pull the two together.
So you're Groupon, basically?
No, because it's specifically location specific, and if you look at the partners that we've got, I think they're not teeth whitening, they're top end brands.
There's nothing wrong with teeth whitening.
Once.
Every day. Every day. Okay, so you've got those sorts of software things, but there's hardware as well, right? We've got lots of new interesting hardware coming down the track. First one, most famously because of the patent applications from Apple and so on, is NFC. Let's talk about that. What are we doing with NFC? Well, A, let's explain it, and then B, what are we going to do with NFC?
So the financial services space via the mobile phone, I think, will really start to take off over the next 6 to 9 months. Effectively, what you've got is NFC or credit card in wallet. Effectively, you'll be able to tap and pay when you go into retailers. So the transaction process is a lot easier for the customer in the retail space.
So I walk into a shop, I want to buy the teeth whitening or the pizza, and I've got my O2 phone, and to pay for it, I just
tap it onto a terminal. It will take it off your balance or put it onto your bill, depending which way we're going to go, and transaction done. You've also got the capability to scan barcodes in stores, and when you scan the barcode, if you're looking at a particular item and it's cheaper elsewhere, then we'll tell you where else it's cheaper. So the whole ecosystem of location specific and bringing the data to help you is what we're really trying to do.
The barcode thing sounds fantastic, and I know the Amazon app already does it, and there's Red Laser and things like that as well. But at the same time, for you to be able to have that tap and pay, you're going to have some gear in all of the shops. How are you going to persuade all of the shopkeepers in the UK, especially when news agents have already got the lottery terminals and the cash registers and the Oyster card recharger and the gas bill thing and all of that sort of stuff? How are you going to persuade them to install all of this equipment just so a load of hipsters can tap their iPhone against it in the morning?
So first up, that's been one of the blockages in making financial services really happen on the mobile phone, because the technology is available in the mobile phone, but you have to have the point of sale equipment in retail stores. We already have evidence that we've trialled it with a major retailer that actually the average ticket item on a tap and pay is more than without tap and pay when you have to go for cash. So from a retailing perspective, we really hope to show the benefits as well. The other reality is with any new technology, it will hit a tipping point, and retailers will not have an option but to have it in store.
So rough timeline?
Well, we've got the capability now. You'll start to see an O2 wallet on your phone in the next quarter, in the next 3 months, and then the point of sale materials are rolling out. Terminals are rolling out across retailers now.
Okay, so the first shop in the earliest state that will be able to en masse go and have a look.
So we've already got the capability now in certain locations, but not nationwide.
Oh, tell us the location.
No, well, we did a trial in Docklands. With Tesco's were part of it, the O2 was part of it, the Arena, so
it's convenient.
WH Smith's, yeah,
cool.
Using your assets.
Indeed. Talking of new technologies, the main thing for everybody, I think, is bandwidth. And in Germany, they already have 4G. In the US, they're rolling out 4G. Here in the UK, no 4G. What's going on?
So first up, you have to clear the frequency, and that's not cleared until just after the Olympics next year. The last region gets turned off last year from a frequency perspective to free it up. The other problem is, frankly, we've got delays in the spectrum auction. And I do worry about UK PLC falling behind. As you say, we did the German auction last year. We're rolling out the network now. The capability we're getting from a wireless perspective, 3 times the speed you would get on a best network today. And also the propagation enables you to do away with the rural and urban divide, because the signal will simply go further. So I worry that we're behind the curve in UK PLC, and we really need to make sure that auction happens, and then we can roll out the technology, because the technology, as I say, is there today.
Do you see, with that, do you see a time in the foreseeable future with 4G that you might start rivaling landline broadband, specifically in rural areas? One of the big problems with the UK is rolling fibre or copper out to, the small village in Wales.
Yeah.
Masts are much easier to do. You can get very good speeds. You're going to start taking on BT.
The economics from a rural perspective is clearly there, that LTE will be a viable alternative. Probably in the UK, beyond about the 85% pop, so for the last 15% of the population, you'll be able to do it more economically on a wireless technology than a wireline technology. Physics will say you'll never quite get the same speed, but you'll certainly get a far better speed than the rural areas are even getting on their dial-up today.
So, we've got new phones, very shiny phones. Next year, by the time 4G rolls out in the UK, there'll be the iPhone 5 and all of that, and it'll be undoubtedly include a teleporter. We'll have your wallet in there, NFC machine, so we can go into McDonald's and pay for our Big Mac by tapping it against the counter. You've got enormous amounts of data. Network operators know where we are, they know who we call, all of these things. And you're starting to commission applications. The temptation must be to take advantage of that intimacy, take advantage of the fact that you know so much about your customers. How do you deal with those sort of privacy issues?
So first up, there has to be what we call a value exchange with the customer. If you let me use your location data, then I can tell you that there's a 2-for-1 in ZZ's down the road. So there has to be a value exchange, and it has to be an open contract. And the other thing we're very clear on is it can't be an off and on button. It needs to be a turn the dial up or turn the dial down in terms of what you're prepared to let me use to give you some value. Because we fundamentally believe, number one, you should not use customer data without the customer knowing. I mean, that's a real no-no. But if you do enter into that contract, then that's hopefully value for you. And you can, if you say you don't want to go that far or you want to turn it off, then that's fine.
And the data, location data, lots of applications do that. We don't have to deal with networks to get the location data, but things like the billing and the calls that we make and so on, that sort of historical data, for example, what's the possibilities of us being able to access, our entire call history for the past 10 years and pass it through our address book and find out who we've been calling the most and things like that?
Yeah. So I don't think we keep it for 10 years, but we certainly keep it for a period. And one of the things we can certainly do with customers is actually help them understand their calling patterns. Did you know the last time you called your mother was 3 months ago type equation? Good for us, maybe good for you, depending on your mother, but probably good for your mother.
And those are the sorts of applications that Telefónica Digital is going to be looking at or
absolutely. So we've got a whole area looking at customer data. We've got all this very rich data, but we're not really utilising it well enough for the customer or well enough for us.
Okay, so with 1 minute and 3 seconds left before we get yanked off the stage by David, you talked about this being an operation where you're going to be entering into partnerships, bringing in talent from elsewhere. We have a room full of entrepreneurial, bright young engineers and such like, all of whom have just been hearing these new capabilities and thinking, ooh, shiny toys we can play with. If somebody here has had an interesting idea, can they bring it to you? Will you fund them?
Absolutely. Well, it depends. I might fund them if it's good. If I think we can both do well out of it. So absolutely, drop me a note. More than happy to pick it up, and we'll engage. We're actively looking now for investment opportunities with companies that are going to bring us capability, or startups.
Well,
my email box is now going to be full by about 2 o'clock, I think.
And your email address is?
Matthew.key@o2.com, double T.
Matthew Key, CEO of Telefónica Digital. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.